Hey there. Are we live? I think we are. No, I think I've seen Quentin before. Quentin, you're not new, right? This isn't your first time. Still don't have. My nails are still lacking. Gosh. Oh, this. Oh, almost time to change the battery here in this tuner. Every time I order a new tuner, I try to get a different one that I don't have so that I can at some point do like a tuner shootout. Let's see. So far, there's only one tuner that I feel like is not a very good tuner that I had. I'm trying to remember which one it is. It's probably what I'm going to have to do is when I do the video, I'm going to have to go through all my guitar cases because I like to have a tuner in every one of my cases. The only problem is the batteries tend to go dead in them, and we can see less hair and more guitar. Ah, what the heck was that? Mary, was it Mary or Margaret or somebody that was going to change strings for the first time? And I guess these strings have been here for quite a while. These are fairly new. I mean, they're probably 2-3 weeks old, but it just now popped. Like I didn't pull it all the way through. Had a good weekend, busy, worked all weekend. Tomorrow we film 2 more services for church. We're still going to be doing online only through June and July. I think the plan is to come back August 1st. It's going to be hard because I'm so used to not having to get up on Sunday morning. But, you know, it's what it is. It's the only day of the week that I have to get up early. Yeah, but there was one tuner... I don't have it anywhere out because I don't like it. And I'm trying to remember what case I have it in. It's kind of like a almost looks like a clothespin or something. You clamp it on top of your guitar. And the battery was so hard to get out. It was just so difficult. I don't know what they were thinking. And you really couldn't see it. And any headstock that wasn't square, it just flew right off. Like my Loudon headstock kind of has a curve to it, and so some tuners won't work on it. Like this opening here is really good for a lot of instruments. Also this one, the Snark one, is great. It's really big and it's got the rubber pad on it, and that just really it opens up really big. It really allows for and I like that you can kind of rotate and turn and all this stuff really easily on it. So and they're super cheap. The Snarks are probably some of the cheapest ones. And when the battery's new, the display is very bright. But boy, I'll tell you, this one's starting to get dim. The only thing I don't like about the Fender one is that to turn it off, you have to hold down the button. If you don't, you turn it on, you just touch it, you just press it once. But if you press it again to turn it off, what it does is it goes from chromatic mode, which is the only mode I ever would use, to guitar mode. So in other words, you're trying to tune down to drop D and you can't because it's like, nope, you're not there yet. And it's like, oh, what? And then it has bass mode. I don't know, V, I'm assuming violin mode, and U for ukulele mode. I mean, that's cute, but who I guess if you don't know what notes you're playing on the instrument, that would be the first thing I would teach someone. I have been formulating my concept for a beginner's kind of guitar system. It's going to be fair. If I do it, it'll be fairly academic. It won't be really song based. Although what I'll try to do is every time I teach a new chord, like I will start with like 2 chords, E minor and A2, and I might start with I don't know if that's a first day of guitar thing, but I usually would teach that. And that just immediately starts getting people's dexterity together. Is Dennis here yet? I told him I would wait for him. He's on his way home. But we're gonna talk some more about chord theory or chord. Well, some chord theory and chord chord progression theory. So we're gonna talk more about that. So far, we've pretty much stayed diatonically. We haven't strayed too much. We're gonna stray today. So I'm double fisted here. I got both my Diet Coke and I've got my Starbucks. But Starbucks is almost gone. So, and I hadn't eaten anything. So I was like, what? Pepper's here. All right, Dennis, where are you? Well, it's all right. We're gonna we're gonna go. He can rewind. I mean, it's totally. My nephew's trying to get a decent classical guitar. My son Alex found a pretty nice Asturias on Reverb and bought it, and it's pretty darn nice. I mean, that's my main nylon guitar. I mean, I've got the Ramirez here, but it's really a flamenco guitar. I use it primarily for flamenco. I mean, I can use it for classical too, but my classical guitar is an old 70s Asturias that I paid like in the late 80s. I think it was after I was, there's no way but I think I paid $500 for it, and which was a lot of money back then, but it was from a guy that was a professional classical guitarist, so he just had more guitars than he needed, and so he sold it to me. And the top is cracked, but it had been repaired by John Carruthers, who's one of the best, and it's not, it's still fine. I mean, I've had it for 30 years, more than 30, probably right around 30 years, and it's never caused a problem. Although, you do have to be careful with nylon guitars. The tops are very... pretty soft. You could really, if you sit on it. At one point, I did one of those things where I forgot I had the guitar case flat and open. I put the guitar in, and I shut the lid, but I didn't, for some reason, It was at one of my best friend's weddings, and I was playing at the reception, and I didn't latch it closed for some reason. So when I picked up the case to go, it just, the case went like this, and then the lid just went poof, and the guitar fell out and then scraped. And it's like, one of the things I don't understand is, I mean, I guess how often does it happen, but on the latches, there's a little lip, a little tongue that sticks down. And I guess that's to align, but what it did was the tongues scraped the top of my Asturias. So my Asturias has two scrapes on it, like here and here, from where it kind of went boom, across the floor face down. But before it got to the floor, it went across the lips on the latches. And I'm like, why do they have but it's the only time that's ever happened to me, so I don't know that a latch would be a problem normally. I'm going to see what my nephew is asking me here about, because he sent me a guitar, and it looked pretty nice. It was an Asturias from the 80s for $500, but by the time he contacted them, they'd sold it. He's a little concerned about having guitars shipped, as some of you know. He sent me another one. 2006. Yeah, I don't. Oh, that's a small body. I don't think I would do that. Yeah, he asked me about one. Small body, no. So anyway, but the guitar is. There have been a couple times where I was sitting, like playing at a wedding. I'm sitting in the sun. I'm wearing a tuxedo. I'm dying out there, and I can literally hear the guitar cracking and drying. It's just like the sun is hitting, and I'm just sweating. That's why I don't do weddings anymore, because there's so many reasons why I don't do weddings anymore. I mean, I recently played at a very good friend's wedding, and it ended up being a great night because I spent like a good 40 minutes talking to David Foster because he was one of the guests. And you probably don't know who David Foster is, but he's a big record producer. And I just wanted to say hi to him, but I think he was bored. And he was like, "Tell me all about yourself." So he wanted to hear my life story, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's freaking David Foster. He was a huge influence on me. Part of the reason why I moved out here was because of the records he was producing. I wanted to work with him for years. He used Lukather originally, Steve Lukather, and then for probably 20 years he's used Michael Thompson on guitar. So I don't expect to get that gig anytime soon. But a super, super nice guy. At least to me. I've heard stories, but he was great to me. I mean, it was a very casual atmosphere. He's there with his wife, who, in fact, what's his wife's name? David. He's been married many times, but she's a country singer. But she, I didn't even know he was there. Oh, Catherine McPhee. I didn't even know he was there. I didn't recognize him. I didn't see him. I didn't recognize him. But his wife Catherine was sitting right, pretty much just like two over at the reception, because they set up this big U-shaped table. Everybody sat at the same table. It's kind of cool. And it was not a very big wedding, and she's looking at me funny, like for some reason, I don't know why. She's kind of looking at me and smiling, and I'm like, okay, well, who is that lady? And so it was funny because they got up, and I have video of it, but I don't want to show it, but because it was private. But I mean, nothing weird or anything. But they got up, they put on an MP3 for the couple to dance to for the first dance, and it was Chicago tune. I can't remember, but one of their ballads, and so we're all watching the happy couple, dancing their first dance as a married couple, and all of a sudden that lady that was smiling at me, she gets up and she grabs a mic and she says, "Stop the dance," and I'm like, gee, what's going on? I'm doing the story at the beginning. Diane better be here. I haven't seen her in a minute. And so sorry. So she grabs the microphone. She says, "Stop the music, stop the music, stop the dance. Why are you dancing to the MP3 of the song?" And I'm like, well, that's kind of a weird question. Does she prefer the CD or something, a better quality? She goes, "Why would you do that when you have the guy that wrote it right here?" And David Foster stands up and he goes and sits, and it was all set up, but he sits down at the piano and he starts playing the song. And the two of Catherine and McPhee and David Foster together sing this song. And it's pretty hilarious. So they slow dance to the Chicago tune. And I can't think of the. No, that's not. Oh, I can't remember what. It's not. And I used to know all the Chicago tunes, but huge Terry Kath fan before, early Chicago days. Great guitar player, one of the best. But yeah, it was pretty surreal. And so I went. I'm gonna have to talk to David at some point in the night, just because he's a big reason why I moved to Los Angeles, and he's whole part of that whole team that I wanted to be part of back when I was a kid. And so he ended up being super, super nice, and was really happy to hear about the things I was working on, and just it was crazy. And I asked him some questions about things that he was like shocked that I even knew, but it was pretty fun. So, oh, I owe you the Pete story. Oh, right, the Pete story. Okay, so Diane's here. Yeah, I'll tell you the Pete story later. Okay, so I don't see Dennis. We're just going to go on. Okay, now we were talking about chord progressions, and we started with the basic 6 chords in any key, any major key. You've got the major 1, 4, and 5, and the minor 3, 2, 3, and 6. Okay, we're going to talk about. So I'm going to write major 1 like this, 3. We do Roman numerals. I started to do a little. Oh wait, I need 6 too. Like a Word doc for this, but it just wasn't. It wasn't doing what I didn't. We're gonna mess this up, okay? So it's gonna get kind of crazy, but we're gonna probably fill up this page with substitutions, okay? Now these substitutions aren't necessarily substitutions for the chords that we have here. In other words, we're not going to change the first chord to a minor. That will be a different thing, okay? That's the only one we're not going to change. But see, we have a major chord, but then we have a minor, minor, major, major, minor. What we're going to do is we're going to make these the opposite of what they are and see how we can use them, okay? And we're not doing, they're not necessarily a substitute for the chord that we're going to replace, okay? So in other words, we're going to use A major instead of A minor. So we're going to have a major 2 chord. And I'm going to show you the cases where that works. But if you're playing a song that has an A minor in it, A major would not be a sub for that, okay? So I don't want you to think that when I show you these chords here, this is not a sub. It's just another chord in the key we can use that's actually outside the key. And we're going to start with the ones that are just kind of, we're going to change one note. In the case of making a minor chord major, we take that third and we sharp it, or we raise it up a half step. In the case of making a major chord minor, we take that third, which is the middle note, 1, 3, 5, and we lower it 1 fret or 1 half step. So that's kind of what we're talking about. That's what we're going to be doing. So, all right, now sip of coffee. Here, so we can all sip. Wait a minute, we should cheers. Cheers. Everybody raise their glass. All right, so now the first one I'm just going to go through in order. This is not going to necessarily be in order of likelihood. That would be hard to assess because I'm not exactly sure which one of those would be more likely. In fact, it might not be any of those 5 chords we're going to have. So ultimately, we're going to have an A major here, B major, C minor, D minor, and E major, and we're going to try to make them work. Okay, fake it. Exactly, Bruce. Okay, so let's take A for example. Now, really, more likely A, you might hear an A7. Okay, so let's listen to that in the context of a song in G. Let me see if I can't think of a song per se that does that, but you'll recognize the sound of it. So we could do something like. Okay, do you hear that? So what I did there was I played G, C, E minor, D, and then I played G, C, and everybody thought, oh, I'm going to do the same chord progression. I've done the first 2, and then instead of playing E minor, I played A7. You could play A major, I played A7 to make it a little bit more country sounding. Hold on. Let me look. My nephew. I'll check out these. Dude, my live stream. He's watched it before. Okay. So the E minor, really, there was nothing about the E minor that really led that strong to D. It's just we're going through the chord progression. 1, 4, 6, and then 5, okay? No, 2. But that A7 is the 5 of D. So this is what you would call, the D is the 5 in the key of G, right? You look at this. Okay. The D is the 5 in the key of G. So the A in the key of G, the A or the A7, and I'm talking major here, A major or A7, not major 7, but A7, is the 5 of the 5. And the way you would write that, okay, so that wants to go to, the D chord. Very strongly, actually. Much more strongly than the E minor. Now, is A7 a substitution for E minor? It depends. It depends on what the next chord is. There's another thing that happens. So this you would write 5/5. See, I wrote 5 and a /5. That would be the 5 of the 5. I can put these. The 5 of the 5. Okay. Well, yes, the A7 is dominant 5 in the key of D. But in this case, you wouldn't call it, I don't think you call it a dominant because technically in the key of G, the dominant is D. Now, I don't really know all the names. I don't even know like subdominant. Subdominant's a C, I think, the mediant. There's names for all of these that I don't know. I know the modes, but I wasn't sick that day in music theory class, but I didn't really need to know it. It was one of those things I didn't. If I used it, Michael, I probably would have remembered it, but I never used it. So yes, this is a dominant chord. This is a dominant chord, but it's a dominant of the dominant. So it's the 5 of the 5. All right. So that is one chord we can use. That in the key of G we can use. It's out of the key. Here's another thing you can notice about it. When I went from the C to the A7, the C is C, E, G. Okay, the A7 is A, C sharp, E, G. Okay, so it actually has 2 of the notes, the E and the G of the C chord. Basically, what you could take the bass player could go. See that the bass player could go up a half. Okay, so I like this chord a lot, and this is basically I'll write it out here for you. X42000. It's a pretty easy chord to play, but the name of it is basically A9 over C sharp. So it sounds like a more complex chord than it is to play. But it's a nice chord leading from the C to the D. I think I had let's see. Actually, I used it the other way around. I went from that chord to C. I went the other way, which is kind of weird, but that's when I'm writing. See, again, that's an original piece that I wrote, and when you're writing, it's whatever sounds good to you. It's like, there I went to an F major chord, even though there's no F major in the key of G. So we'll talk about that. We're gonna get to those other chords too. Okay. Now, let's see. Okay, so you could, like I said, you could also play, you know, like an A over C sharp, A7 over C sharp. You could also kind of play C sharp diminished, even though that's seventh, even though that's not really what an A7 is, but it would be like, right? You've heard that sound before, so G, C, E minor, D, G, C, C sharp diminished. It's a little bit, that B flat's a little weird, but there's a lot of leading going on there. You know, you've got all this, and that's part of the reason why it works. And the 5 chord has, in fact, when you play a 7th chord, like if I play a D7, okay, right here, there's 2 notes in that want to lead to a note to notes in the G chord by half step. And half steps are really, really strong leading to it. So we got, if you look at the top 2 notes here, just play those top 2. The C and the F sharp. Okay, that's part of a D7 chord, right? Top 2 notes of a D7 chord. Okay, Dennis, well, you haven't missed much. I waited as long as I could. I really did. Thanks, Pepper. So this F sharp wants to go up to G. This is a tritone, the devil's tone. The F sharp wants to go to G, and the C wants to go down to B. So it creates a lot of tension and release. Probably the most used tension and release in music altogether. So if I just played a simple D chord, you know, that's fine too. But that's not as much tension as. And the other thing I love about this is the contrary movement. Okay, if you were to see it written in music, which is another reason why I like music notation, is you can actually, in tab you don't see this, but in music you can actually see the notes get further apart. Like one's going up and one's going down. And that is just, that's good voice leading. And like I said, this is probably the most common tension and release in music. Okay, so we did A7. Okay, well, let's go and let's take the next chord. So Dennis, just so you can catch up here, is I wrote out the major scale, the 6 major chords, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 4, 5 being major, 2, 3, 6 being minor, and we're going to go through and, except for the root, we're not going to change the root because that would make it a minor. We'd be in a minor key if I changed this to G minor. I could justify it, but I don't. You know, I don't want to. It's not worth talking about because it's so rare. But what we did was we're going to go through and all the other chords, we're going to make them the opposite of what they were. So if they're minor, we're going to make them major. And you're going to hear context situations where they actually work. Okay, so the next one we're going to do is we're going to make the B minor major. All right, and we're going to see how where that shows up. And I can think of multiple examples of that. And again, I'm going to put a 7th chord because I feel like the 7th is even stronger. Okay, so right there, boom, under the B minor, I'm writing B7. Now, so let's see, a different progression might be, let's see. So what I did was my progression was E minor to C, G, D. Standard key of G progression. It was kind of what I always kind of think of as a 90s hip hop. In fact, I'm going to share, let's see if I can share this on my Facebook page. On my Facebook page, where is it? Let's see. I posted a video. It was one of those, hey, this happened 9 years ago or whatever. It's like, dang it, did that really happen? Oh my gosh, now here's one that's 11 years ago. What the heck is this? I don't even remember that. I don't even know what this is. So I'm gonna post it. See if I can post it to, because it's kind of that. I wrote this song in the '90s, and let's see if I can share it. How do I share this? I'll figure it out later. But it's kind of an example of two things. You know, that groove we talked about back when called the hip hop groove, and the one I was just now playing, and that progression I think is very, very 90s. The E minor, 6, 4, 5, or 1, 5. Right? But instead of playing D the second time around, I play B7. And so that's not in the key of G. All right? There is no D sharp in the key of G. So, how did you guys get a sip? Oh, air quotes. I did do air quotes. Okay, I'm going to take a sip of that Coke. I'm trying to save my coffee. Yeah, man, it's busy. I got an email from a client that I'm working for today. Let me make sure. Okay, no. Perfect. All right, so so I used I took the 3 chord instead of playing minor. Now let's see what that would sound like. Let's play just pure B minor, which is in the key. Let's see what that sounds. Might work really well actually. And that B minor would be a harmonic substitute. That's totally fine. A little bit sad. But not as common as. Yeah, I really like the sound of B7 and that major 3 chord, okay, or a dominant. You know what, Michael? You could totally call it a dominant 3 chord. You can definitely, because it is a dominant, and we're gonna show that right now, okay? It is a dominant of the 6, okay? So it's the 5 of the 6. So it is in its own little universe. Yeah, you could consider it a dominant chord. When I hear the term dominant, I also, to me, I think of 7th chords, dominant 7th chords. And so that's kind of why, you say dominant 7th is kind of the old school way. In fact, you even used to write it like B, DOM 7, but now people just write B7. It's not, you don't need to write dom. Okay, but the B7 also wants to lead to, and I kind of want to keep track of these chord progressions because they're kind of cool. I want to be able to, let's see. Cause I don't want to put them on this page because I kind of want this page. I'm going to scan this and I'll post it to our Discord. Those Discord links don't stay, the invites don't stay good very long. Excuse me, which is probably a good thing. You wouldn't want it to get too crazy. But I'm going to post an invite link right now. Okay, copy. So if you're thinking about joining Discord, click on that now. B major 7, I wouldn't. I can't think of a reason why B major 7 would work. I mean, you could. You're right. You're the writer. If you can make it work and you make it sound good, and it sounds good to you, then that would be fine. But here's what that would sound like. And so let's see. I can't hear that. I'm not hearing that. But the B7 is much stronger. But here's the other thing it could lead to. It could lead to C. So check this out. Let's say we have a progression. So this would not be a case of dominant. It's not the dominant of C, but it can also lead to C. Okay, so I'm going to put a little arrow aiming up at C. So that B7 would go nice to C. It would go nice to E minor, really strong to E minor. But I'll give you an example of a song that does B7 to C, and it'll bring us into the very, very next example. But say we had a song. I'm going to play a song that's purely diatonic, or chord progression is purely diatonic. So let's see. Kind of sounds like a Green Day song or something like that. Okay, well, check this out. If I play G to B7 to C to C minor, you get Creep by Radiohead. Okay, so that brings in the next chord, which is, I got my bass sample up, which is C minor. So now we have a minor 4. There's our minor 4. Okay. And C minor, really generally, I think of C minor as kind of resolving. Let me see. I usually think of it, and in the case of Creep, it does. I think of it as resolving back to 1. It's actually a very strong. It's all, in some ways, it's almost a strong, as almost as strong of a leading chord to the 1 chord. Oops, sorry, to the 1 chord. As the 5 chord is, okay, as D is, all right. We got, if we go D to G or D7 to G, remember that was our most common little tritone thing, right? Okay, so there's D7 to G. But interestingly, remember before I said, one of the strongest types of movements is a 1 fret or half step movement. And going from D7 to G, we have 2 of those. F sharp up to G and C down to B. Really strong leading chords there. Okay, so, but with C minor, we have the C and the E flat both want to lead down by half step. In fact, I can even make a D7, combine the D7 with a C minor, and I get basically a D7 flat 9, which is very strong jazz kind of leading. But right now we're just talking about the C minor, and we have that E flat and that C, and they want to lead to D and B, right? So I feel like, and I'm out of tune. Okay. So that's a really, really kind of cool I really like the sound of that kind of movement. The C minor, would it go to any other chord? Maybe, but not as common. C minor, you could go to E minor, but so it's just like a. Maybe, you know, kind of, but okay. Now, here's a side note. We're gonna talk about these chords later, probably Wednesday. But part of what you're hearing when I play that minor 4 chord, in this case C minor, okay, is something else, and I'll play it for you in a second. But I want you to help me figure it out. What's the relative major chord to C minor? So remember, when we want to find the relative minor, we go down 3 half steps, right? You count down like from G, or I like to go half step and then whole step, because usually that tells you what it is, you know, relative the 1 chord to the 6th chord. So what is the relative major to C minor? Very good. Okay. Yep. E flat. Thanks, Tom. Leon, you were right, except but more commonly, D sharp is correct, but more commonly you would say E flat. Okay. So when a very common final cadence for a song would be to go from, in the key of G, for example, would be E flat, which is the major, it's the flat 6 major to the flat 7 major. Okay, and we've all heard that before. Right, so if I go, so that's kind of you can kind of hear that from that C minor, and even in the song Creep, and the Holly song that it was based on, and the Lana Del Rey song that she stole Creep from. I hear a lot of songs that totally rob the chord progression from Creep, and it's not. I don't believe that chord progressions are copyrightable. So even giant steps. But it is a great chord progression, Leo. I really like that chord progression. Yeah, that's the chorus part. And I do think that right, it goes the end of the song. I think the bass player actually does do so he kind of implies that E flat to F walk up. I think there's a couple times where that happens. Okay, now this one of all of these changes, again, just so if you're just joining us, we're taking the basic 6 chords, most common 6 chords in the key of G, and we're taking 5 of them, not the first one, but every other chord, and if they were minor, we're making a major. Okay, so we took the A minor, we made it A major, or I like to use A7 because it makes it really obvious. B minor, B7, again, that's kind of the Radiohead thing, and then C major, we made minor. So now we got D major, we're going to make D major minor. Of the 5 of these changes we're making, this one's the least is the least used, I think. I like it personally. I like it a lot. D minor, the relative major to D minor is F. And F is a very common chord to go to in the key of G if you want to create kind of a bluesy sound or whatever. I'll get, so many songs, like What I Like About You. Technically, that song is in the key of A because E and D are the 5 and the 4 in the key of A. Okay, there won't be a quiz on this, so don't worry. Take a sip. That's one of our rules. If I say there won't be a quiz on this, you can take a sip. It's a celebratory sip. Oh, and by the way, I noticed, I didn't even know, and I don't know why the coffee mug didn't show up, but I want the coffee mug. So I'm going to redo this. But if you go to, let me see, let me go here. My channel. If you go to my channel, there's a little tab there. Wait, what are you doing here? What the heck is this? Oh, cancel. Channel art, that's weird. There's a tab called store. Oh, the mug is there. Oh, sweet. Okay, so check this out. Is it? Yep. So check this out. I can redo these, but they're basic, super basic. But they're, if you want to, I think the mug is the most awesome to be holding that up to your face. The t-shirts didn't make as much sense to me, and they have tote bags, they have everything, they have stickers. But anyway, if you want to buy some, and I can tell you right now, I think on the mug it's like a $5 shipping. It's pretty expensive, so it's $20 investment. I think I make $7 from that, just so you know, full disclosure. So I do make money on it. Quiz, skip, sip. Leo, quiz, skip, sip. That's what that's called. Quiz, skip, sip. I had a band in high school called Quiz, Skip, Sip. Actually, it's a great band name. Somebody's got, come on, one of you's got to start a band called Quiz, Skip, Sip. I guarantee you there's no band out there called Quiz, Skip, Sip. All right, so now the D minor, the D minor's relative major is F. So, my point about what I like about technically, the chord progression is in the key of A, right? Here's the one chord here. But you would never end that song on an A chord, right? You wouldn't solo an A over it. No, it ends on an E chord. So how do we explain this chord progression then, if it's in the key of E? Well, you explain it by, and we're going to get to it, we're going to get to this one Wednesday. If we get together Wednesday, if I can. Okay. If I can't, I'll let you know. Oh, sorry. Question from Margaret regarding F chord cheat. Yeah, I can give you a couple of those. No problem. Remind me on that for a second. So, basically, okay, so this is the 1 chord, this is the 4 chord, and this is a flat major 7 chord. And it creates this kind of bluesy sound. And again, you wouldn't, because this is technically, the notes are in the key of A. You would not solo in the key of A, it would sound awful. You just basically... There's 50 songs using that chord progression. R-O-C-K in the USA, Cherry Baby by Neil Diamond. You've got What I Like About You. Just a million chord songs use the same chord. But you would basically... to sound really... To keep it in that kind of bluesy fun mode, you would just play E blues or something like that. Anyway, okay. So, but my point is that D minor in the key of G, D minor's relative major is F. So it might be a chord you would use in a sub as for the F chord. Instead of playing F chord, you could do, but like, so for example, right? Totally legitimate chord progression. But if I go to D minor, something about that I like almost better. It's less used. that doesn't really work. I thought, oh, maybe if I go to the minor 4 too. It doesn't really work. So actually, the D minor sounds really nice going to the C chord. Part of it is I think there's that F that wants to go down to E, again, the resolution thing. And then that D kind of wants to go up to E or down to C. The A wants to go down to G. It's one giant. One giant suspension. It's everything suspended. D minor is all the suspensions on C. You got a sus4, you got a sus2, you got a sus6. So that's kind of what's happening there. Okay. So D minor is, you could also think of it as a, you could also think of it as a sub for F. And as far as what it wants to go to, you know, it might want to go to C. You know, like I said, it's kind of like that, the suspensions of C. And it's pointing up at the C minor, but really I mean it for you to think all the way to the top there. Okay. Or you could even, you know, technically think of it as wanting to go to G, but I'm going to use a dotted line for that because it's not, there's no real strong push from D minor to anything else. Okay, now we have one more chord to do. And then I will try to remember, Margaret, to give you some F chords here, okay? All right, so the last one, instead of E minor, we're going to play E major, or in this case, I'm going to, again, put a 7th there, okay? The E is the 5 of the B. So we could send that. That works pretty strong going to the B minor. So a context for that might be, let me see if I can. I'm sorry. Did I say B minor? I meant, darn it, I meant A minor. Gosh. And this was going so well. So it's technically the 5 of the 2 chord, right? We had the 5 of the 5, the 5 of the 6, and now we have the 5 of the 2. So it's creating a kind of strong, you'll hear it, I'll play it for you here in a second. Let's see, what chord progression would I do? So like, sorry, the 50s, 1, 6, 4, 5. So I'm basically using the E7 as a substitute for the E minor chord. Wouldn't always work, but it's going to want to lead to the A minor chord. But it also could lead the F chord. Let's see what that sounds like. It's not as strong. It may lead stronger to the E7 to the F minor. I don't know. It's pretty, it really wants to go to the A minor, but it also could go to the A7, okay? And which wants to go to the D7, which wants to go to the G, all right? So basically we have the 1, we have the 5, we have the 5 of the 5, we have the 5 of the 5 of the 5. Yeah. So that's a very common chord progression, believe it or not. It's called a circle of fifths chord progression. And oftentimes, you actually would start on the B, okay? Because if you start on, if the song's in the key of G, just stick with me for a minute here. If the song's in the key of G, you're probably gonna want the first chord of the phrase to be G. So if I did this, now I'm back at the top and I'm like, wait, I just ended it with a G and started with a G. No, I want something to lead to the first chord of the progression. So I want to move everything backwards one. So I want the D7 to lead to the G chord at the top of this, say this is the last chord of the song and this is the first chord of the song when you go back to the top, okay? Well, what's the 5 of this? Oh, well, the 5 of D is A7. What's the 5 of A7? E7. Well, that's 3 chords, but we need a 4-chord progression. So what's the 5 of E7? B7. Okay, so B is the 3rd of the key of G. So anytime you want this circle of fifths progression that will take you back to the top, to the 1 chord, start playing 7th chords on the 3rd of the key, and then that will take you through the circle of fifths. So you do that. The 3rd of the key in this case is B7. Okay. And then that one wants to go to E7, and then that one wants to go to A7, and that one wants to go to E7. I'm sorry. Country thing, but also it's used a lot in jazz. I talked about a few days ago. I talked about rhythm changes and how I thought that was just every song has rhythm changes, but it's specifically rhythm changes refers to the changes to I got rhythm. So I played in jazz groups for years, and somebody would yell out, just play rhythm changes, and I'm like, okay, what are they? And so, but the B section of I Got Rhythm is that progression. It's like, in fact, I'll tell you, here's a melody that's written over rhythm changes. Okay, so that's something. Let's see, was it? Whatever, I'm not even sure because I don't know rhythm changes. I'm so lame. I need to look them up real quick. But then it goes to the it's in the key C. It's basically 1-6-2-5, but it's not exactly. It changes a little bit. 3rd of the key means the 3rd note in the scale. So in the key of G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, the 3rd would be B, G, A, B, 3rd note in the scale. Okay? You understand that, Pepper? When we talked about, that was something that I probably said a lot when we were talking about scale theory and modes and things like that early on. Just been a while. Okay, so, but yeah, so that song's in the key of C, Flintstones. And then when it gets, when it goes to the B section, that's, the cool thing about that B section, just a little melodic, you're still, every note is in the key of C, even though every one of these chords is a, it never uses any of, like, it doesn't hint at the G sharp or the C sharp that are out of the key, the F sharp, that's, all those notes that are in these chords here that are not part of the key of C, they don't even accommodate them in the melody. They just keep the melody. They keep the melody totally in the key of C. No sharps, no flats, which is really cool. I mean, it's a brilliant melody. Yabba dabba doo. So, that whole thing, if we go to the 3rd, okay, we play B7, okay, and then we go to E7, and then we go to A7, and then we go to D7, okay. That's just circle of fifths. We talked about circle of fifths, but the movement is, down, let's see, B to, so B is the 5 of E. E is the 5 of A is the 5 of D, and then D is the 5 of, and eventually, and you can loop this and then get to the G when you want to. But basically what we have here is that's a major 3/7, right? This is a 6/7. This is a 2/7. Oops, 2/7. And this is a 5/7, which is normal. Okay. Those are, you see, they're all they're all large case Roman numerals because they're all major triads with a 7th added. All right. And again, B is the third note in the key of G. So if you go to the 3rd note in any major key and play a 7th chord and start playing fifths now. But what I was saying is this is the 5 of G. Okay. Right. D is the 5 chord in the key of G. A7 is the 5 chord of the 5 chord. 5 of the 5. Where's it? There we go. Okay. E7 is the 5 of the 5 of the 5. Okay. This is why it's called stacked or a circle of fifths progression, because it's just nothing but 5s. In some ways. So, okay, and then the B7 is the 5 of the 5 of the 5 of the 5. All right. All right. So basically, that is all the stuff that I was going to cover today. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this. I'm going to scan this and put this up on the Discord page so you guys have that. All right. Hopefully it makes some sense, but just make your own notes. Come up with some chord progressions. You know, share some chord progressions with me at some point if you want to. You can, excuse me. Used to be when we started doing these lessons, if I coughed, you thought I had the COVID. You were like, oh no, Tom's sick. I have not been sick at all this whole time. Not since the shutdown. I was sick before, and I think I already had it. All right. Yeah, dominance Big Bang, exactly. It's totally... Okay. So I'm scanning. This is very exciting. This is like watching an episode of CSI when they're Googling something. Is Jim a murderer? Yes. Guilty. Okay. Save this PDF file. Core progressions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post this PDF right now in the... And I think I posted... Did it save? Yeah. Oh, there we go. Okay. Close. Clear. All right. So let me go over to the Discord. I'm going to create another link for you. So check out the store, though. Did you see that? Did you see the mug? There won't be a quiz on this. I think that was the best way to word it. I kind of went with a different, through some different iterations. But okay, and it goes in, I can never remember. It goes into homework or, no, Tom's bookmarks. Okay, so here I go. Here we go. Oh, did I? I'm going to upload 2 things. Oh, well. Prog theory. Huh. I don't see, I thought I did the other one. Let me do the one from the other day. Oh, no, sorry. No, that's something I was going to create today, but I didn't end up using that. Okay. So, yes. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so the whole point of this is that we took the basic chord progression. I mean, not chord progression, but the basic chords in the key of G. Sorry, I'm like having troubles getting orientated. But the chords in the key of G, okay? And we spent 2 days, 2 lessons on just those chords and talking about making chord progressions, coming up with different things. And here's the thing. Ultimately, probably what we're going to do, so we had 6 chords here. We changed 5 of them. So we ended up with 11 chords. We changed 5 of them to major, the minors to major and the majors to minor, except the root, except the one chord, G. My original premise was the first thing you want to try, if you're trying to figure out a song, and I'll tell you what, I want to issue you a challenge now. Oh, I got to do F chords. I haven't forgotten about you. I almost did, but I haven't. I want to challenge you to try to figure out songs yourself. Don't go straight to the web and look for cheat sheets, okay? Try to figure out songs yourself. If you're trying to figure out a song, especially if it's just a simple song with chords, someone strumming, and it's there's so many songs like that. If there's riffs or something like that, obviously that could be a little bit more difficult. Hey, congratulations, Avito. You're done for this. You're done for the time being. But if you can figure out what key it is in, and then you go to that key and you figure out, okay, what's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chords, chances are it's probably every chord they're going to use is there. Remember, initially we found 12 major chords and 12 minor chords in any, that are potential. So there's 24 chords, major and minor chords, in Western music. And, okay, take a sip. But you can eliminate 75% of those by just figuring out what key a song is in, and then limiting your search to the 1, the minor 2, minor 3, the major 4, the major 5, and the 6. And you can figure out a song a lot faster if you can eliminate the potential 75% of the chords. Okay, so that was my first original premise. Now what we're doing, though, is we're making so many alterations that we might ultimately come close to justifying a use of some variation or form of all 24 chords. Maybe not all, but I bet we can get up into the high teens as far as justifying. We're already into 11 at this point, right? We originally started with G, A, B minor, or G, A minor, B minor, C, D, and E minor. Now we've got G, A, B, C minor, D minor, E, and we mentioned F and we mentioned E flat. That's 13 right there, and we've got more to do, I think. So we'll see what I can come up with. I can think of 3 more. We'll be in the teens. We're already in the teens. Trying to think. Yeah, D flat. No major, minor. D flat's gonna work. We're almost done. We're almost done with all the kind of ancillary neighboring chords in the key of G. Okay? All right. So let's see. Yeah, that's great, Avito. Figuring out by ear is really good, but a lot of people don't really have that skill. I developed it mainly out of necessity when I was teaching guitar lessons, because I'd have 30 minutes to tune the kid's guitar. 30 minutes to tune the kid's guitar, figure out the song, get it down on paper, and get them playing it. I mean, that's why oftentimes songs like Stairway to Heaven would get broken up into 5 lessons, or, heck, I could... somebody's trying to call me, but I can't answer it. Let's see. All right, now F chords. Okay, let's talk about F chords. And then I've got to, so weird. I've got to tell that story, the Pete story. All right, so F chord, for one thing, let's just talk about the F chord itself, the main bar chord. You know, I used to think you have to keep your finger perfectly straight. You really don't. Your only goal is to get this bottom string and the top two strings. And you may find that if you put a capo on, and I'm talking to you, I think it's Margaret, right? Is that who it was? School's out for summer. Yeah, Margaret. Okay. Hopefully Margaret's still here. But one thing is, you know, just so you could, at some point, you're going to want to get the regular F chord down if you can, if it's possible. It may not be possible, but if you capo at the first fret, you'll find that that it's a little bit easier to press down the strings because the strings are now at fret height instead of being at nut height. Okay, so that just if you're like really can't get it, you can try that and say, oh wait, I can get it. Okay, I want to be encouraged. All right. That said, there are other options. Okay, and I'm gonna show them to you. I'm gonna mansplain why they work and why they don't work. And I don't have an opinion on here necessarily that you can't use. If you're playing with a bass player, it really is less important because the bass player can cover that note or the octave below that. So if you look at this, we can play parts of it, okay? For example, if we needed a low F chord, you could just play like the bottom 2 or 3 notes and make a power chord. I'm not barring my first finger. I'm literally just playing one note. Okay, so that would be one thing you could practice if you want. You needed an F chord. You don't necessarily want to. I think about Nirvana. He's not playing an F chord. He's playing an F sus. He's just laying his finger down like that. He's just kind of laying his finger down and creating that kind of sound. Okay, now. But okay, we talked about the bottom. Let's talk about the top. Okay, if you can get that down, the top 2 notes barred, then you get this second finger. Technically, that's an F chord. Now that's a really, pardon, but it's a weenie. That's a weenie F chord. All right, and it's also it's going to sound really bad against. I can't even, you know, it's hard to strum, you know. So then if we add the next note in the F chord, we end up with this, okay? And that one's fine. It's still on the weenie side, partly because it's just a 4-string chord. D is a 4-string chord, but D is kind of weenie, I have to admit. It's really hard not to hit all the strings on a D chord. Is just going to get mushy. Kind of hard, but a lot of times, if I drop D, I can make D a monstrous chord. Okay. Okay. So that F would be basically, and a lot of times when you're a beginner, you're taught this F. And that's pure F. It's got an F, A, C. Those are the notes in it. There's F, A, C, there's a triad, and another F. Okay? Now, if your main thing is you just can't get this note because your finger's not long enough or you just don't have enough strength to get this note and these notes, you can do 5/6 of the chord. What percentage is that, engineers? About 83%. We can do 83% of the chord like this, okay? Now this technically, well, let me back up one. Okay, play this one again. The open A string is fine. Okay, the open A string is fine, especially if I've got a bass player playing the F, okay? All right, so that one would be X0, 2, 3, 1, 1. That would technically be F over A because that A string is the third of F, but that's in the triad FAC. Those are the notes FAC. So there's an A. The A is technically in there, so you can do that one. That would be another substitute. But the problem with that, by yourself, it has a leading quality to it. It wants to go somewhere. It wants to, and it may not work if you're playing like. It might sound like you're trying to play A minor chord but messing up or something, okay? So if you can play this, that's a little bit better because you're putting a fifth in the bass instead of a third in the bass. And so, yeah, if you haven't watched, I think I talk about almost every one of these in that darned F chord. This would be F over C. All right. I mean, I could do a video. We can talk about this again, and I'll do a video. We can do a live thing on. I've got that darn F chord though. Actually, one of my most popular videos. Again, F over C. That really wants to go to a C chord. It's like an amen. But in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't sound too much different than a full F chord. That's for good reason. It's 5/6 of an F chord, which is what percentage? Like 83%, right? Somebody do the math for me. Come on, man. I thought we had engineers here. Bruce, where's Roger? Roger's not here today. Okay, Gary, I think too is. So. Now, the other thing you could do is, and these won't always work, but you could use chord substitutes. You don't need to find it, Margaret. I'll post a link right now. Okay? I can find it easier than you can. Videos, if I sort by, on my channel, by most, sort by, hey, I'm live now. Cool. Most popular. I'm so popular. It's my 1, 2, 3, 7th most popular video. Oh, can I just create a? No. Okay. It's got almost 200,000 views. That's pretty dope. All right. So here's the link. It's funny. I got 79 dislikes on it. Thumbs down. Who does? You get mad at someone for trying to help you. It drives me crazy. No, it doesn't. It doesn't bother me. I don't really care. But thumbs up this video. Thank you. 83.6. Boy, I was close, Bruce. I just winged it. Okay, so I'm touching my face so we can take a sip. And that was, I have a feeling now I've got this thing where I've trained myself if I'm thirsty, I have to touch my face first. So it's actually had the opposite effect. Okay, so, but if we want to use not pure F chords, so far every F chord I've shown you, Margaret, has contained only F, A, and C. Okay, if we can stray away from that, then we have some options there too. One that I like to use a lot is I would call F2 over C. And then for those players out there, I'm going to show you one that you'll really dig, but it's not easy to play. But check this out. Okay, so this one would be X, okay, 3 3 0 1 1, and this would be technically an F2. Actually, technically it's an F2, no third. Excuse me. If you played the A string open, you could do this, and this would be F2 over A. F2 over A. Okay. All right, let's see. Did any of these people leave messages? I only have one person that comes up unknown caller. And that's okay, so now, so we've got F2, no third, Yeah, I understand it. I understand, Catherine. So this is F2 over A. Now, again, we got to listen to some of these in context because this has got a lot of F sound to it because there's two Fs in it. However, in the context of it's not bad. If I go to straight F. A little bit weird sounding, but it's not bad. It technically implies everything that there is about F. The other thing you could do is C. You go to C sus like this, and leave the E string open, and that would be X 33010. That's technically I could call that F major 9 over C. Technically another variation on it. Another one you could do would be F, so it'd be X0201. This is probably the easiest F chord. This has literally, and one of the problems with F chord that I don't like about F chord, this is F major 9, oops, there we go, over A. One of the main problems with the F chord is that there are no open strings on this bar chord, okay? No open strings. So when you go from C to G, you got all these open, ringy, beautiful strings that people expect to hear when you pick up an acoustic guitar. And then you go to this and you might as well be playing an electric guitar because it's all like dark, all finger, everything's got fingers all over it. You got the G, big G, ringy. I almost like the sound of an F chord if I just go ahead and play bar chords. Because it's consistent, It's got that dark. Okay? And so, okay, so, but again, Catherine, what I want you to do too is at some point, put a capo on your guitar, anywhere and try to play an F chord up, a couple things. You could go way up the neck, let the capo do most of the work, okay? You go up here like to the, 7th fret and play. Now you've got, the frets are really close together and the strings are really low, and you might actually be able to get sound out of it. And then if you can get this to sound, if you can get everything to ring out, then take that same skill and that same dexterity and go down a fret and try to get this chord. Try to get this one sounding good. Okay? Then go down another fret. And once you have it down here, you can go. Okay, and you go down. You get the idea, so that if you can actually do it here, you can spend a week here, and then a week here, and a week here, and a week here, and eventually you might actually have it. But it's not critical. Like I said, this chord is a good substitute, and you don't have to have a full bar. But ultimately, to play guitar, you're going to want to have some dexterity with all 4 fingers. So you should ultimately be able to get this chord. It might be a little tough. Your second finger may lay down, and you might get like this kind of sound. Like that kind of going, okay? Yeah, that one's a bit minor sounding. I love that chord. I mean, that major ninth chord. I'm gonna change guitar so you all can. I'm gonna have to create a sound here. Hold on a second. What am I doing? Oh, Logic. Okay. Let me add a guitar sound. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling up an electric guitar sound that has a lot of delay and reverb. All right. Well, maybe not that much. Oh, no, I know what I need. I need this one. And actually, I'm going to not play this guitar. I'm going to use my Strat. My main Strat, I actually have it out. I'm working on a movie today that has a bunch of surf music, so I needed to use this guitar for that. So, so that major ninth chord that we played, let me get back to here. Okay, too many screens. This one here. Okay, so I'm playing nothing on the bottom string. Again, it's almost jazzy sounding. It doesn't quite sound like it doesn't really sound like an F major chord at all. So, but what this is F, and I don't know if you can see that triangle, 7 over A. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that little tip, right? Where you wad up a piece of paper and you put it in the ball of your hand to keep, because I've always said that if you have your thumb up here, and of course you'll see me with my thumb up there, but it's because I don't have a problem making these chords, okay? I don't have a problem making chords, and I'm using the thumb as a tool. It's not necessarily laziness. I'm using the thumb to mute strings I don't want to ring out. Like on the D chord, I'm actually muting the bottom 2 strings so that I can go with a full 4 strum. I don't have to moderate my strum because I only want to hit 4 strings. I can go ahead and hit all 6 strings, but I'm going to deaden 2 of them. Same thing with A or the C chord. Now the thumb's up there for the G chord. It's just because I'm keeping it ready. Okay. But what Pepper was saying is something that I talked about, and I used to do it with students all the time when I had kids. They wouldn't. They would grab the neck like a baseball bat, okay, and their palm would be touching. Well, I've showed you this 1,000 times, but this is not a sippable offense. But if you open up your hand, you can spread your fingers really wide. But as soon as you start to make a fist, your fingers all want to go to the center of your palm, and they just run into each other, and then they kind of have to do this, okay? So if the neck is in the palm of your hand, you have very little mobility. And like Pepper, you're talking about the romance for guitar, getting that 4-fret stretch. You just wouldn't be able to do it if the palm of your. I couldn't do it. Not going to happen. So what I would do is I would wad up a piece of paper, put it right there, so that would force them to keep their palm of their hand away. And if I'm going to do some really hard chord, like say my E major, this is E or E4 chord, okay. This. I got my thumb way back down there. See, my palm is nowhere near the guitar. So, but yeah, that's that major ninth. Except I'm playing in E instead of F. Here's the F one. Hard to keep. I went sharp. Anyway, so anyway, that major ninth over A, the F major ninth over A, definitely kind of not super duper strong F sound. Let me go back to a more normal guitar sound. And also, Margaret, and there were a couple of you that were having issues with bar chords. Well, everyone besides you that's something else to realize. And I'm going to finish up here in a second. That's something else to realize. You're not the only one having this problem. There's a lot of people having the problem. Thus, I made that video because I had so many requests about that. And in fact, I even think I mentioned the F chord in my video, the 7 tips for older beginners. That's really popular. So, just take a regular piece of paper, like, just wad it up. You can make it pretty small. The idea is just to keep the palm of your hand from, from going up against the thing, and you're more likely to get distance. So, I mean, it's hard to play normal things with that, but it is just good for training you. The other thing I would do with young students is I would have them play. They would like lift their fingers too far off the fretboard, like to go from C to D. And so I say, look, stand up, face the wall, get as close to the wall as you can, and try not to let your fingers hit the wall. And it trained them to kind of move their fingers much more efficiently. Okay. All right. Let's see. What else? And so I actually had a student that showed up with the wad of paper, and what he had done is he wrapped masking tape around it and turned it into a total, like it was like a ball, like it was a serious ball, and it was perfectly shaped for his hand. It was really cool, actually. And he used it for a while, and then he stopped using it. I did have a student too show up. He was having a hard time with power chords, like keeping the second and third finger together. He kept like moving the fingers around. He actually showed up for his lesson. He masking tape around his 2 fingers so that he could hold them together. It was cracking me up. But it trained his fingers to do it. And the next week he didn't have it. So. It's yeah. I mean, I've got a million. A lot of times what I'm doing is just adding. It's just a lot of reverb and compression, and Yeah, I do a lot of stuff with noises. So I'm always doing different things. A Kemper? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of guys that swear by the Kemper amps. Kempers are a kind of a fairly new iteration. My live rig has been my Lexicon rig since the 90s. And I always said, budget's not an issue for me. So I always said that if I ever found something that sounded better to me than the Lexicon, I would buy it in a heartbeat. Don't have a problem with it. I can justify it. I lots of gigs and things like that. And so I have a Lexicon tube preamp and power amp, Lexicon MPX G2, I think it's called. I also have the board that goes with it. I even have the cabinet that goes with it, stereo folded 212 or 210 cabinet. It all sounds great together. It's funny because I'll have kids show up with Kempers. I'll have kids show up at church with full, pedal boards and amps and everything, and then they hear my rig in their earphones, and they're like, "Wait a minute, what are you using? It sounds amazing. Is that like a full? What's back there?" It's like, I'm like, it's just this. And a part of it is I've been programming it since the 90s, so I've got I'll make micro adjustments every now and then, so I'm always fine tuning it. And so that's one thing. The thing I didn't like about the Kemper, I don't like anything where they want more money out of me. I had that problem with Amplitude. I talked to the guys at NAM. Amplitude is a software amplifier that I use, that my son swears by. I bought it and it came with absolutely nothing. Like all the pedals are all grayed out because you got to buy them separately. And I'm like, no, I just paid $200 for the software. It should have everything. That's ridiculous. So I was a little upset about that. They said that when I talked to them at NAM, they said, no, it should have come with a lot of stuff. I'm like, I'm not seeing it. They go, well, so I'm supposed to call them, but then the COVID thing happened and just kind of got sidetracked. But I do like the sound of some of the sounds, so that was my problem with the Kemper was that, yeah, the Kemper is a great idea. You can, and to get all kind of tech nerdy on it, you can take your current amp. Let's say you had a huge amp collection, vintage amps and everything like that. The Kemper will do this modeling thing, and I don't know how close it is. I've seen videos on it, and it's like really hard to tell through a video. But where they take the amp that you have, you plug in an output from the Kemper will run this like, hiss through it and stuff like that. Sample, basically, you get your sound. The problem is, well, which sound are you getting? Are you going to change the amp for like because I may go, when I'm playing live, I may go over and adjust an amp 10 times in one set if I'm playing through a real amp. So how are you going to be able to do, they're saying you can do that all in the box, but I don't know. But you can basically sample your amp sound through the Kemper, and then you can do it, and you can do it yourself. Yeah, multimedia guitar. I think Guitar Rig's much better. I dig Guitar Rig. I feel like that's why I use Guitar Rig almost exclusively. I'm not a fan of amp on Logic. I never was. And for years I was using my rig into my DAW. So impulse response technology. Yeah, I don't know if I'm the guy to do the compare and contrast with those though. Because there are a lot of guys that are much nerdier about that than I am, and then it would require me to kind of multi-record film and audio, and I've never done any like good quality audio for my videos yet. I still haven't. I tried to upgrade like with when I first moved into this room, I didn't like the boominess, but now it's a little bit better because I've got the wall panels up. But I probably should get a couple more wall panels. But I tried a lapel mic, and that didn't really get any better. And so, Peach story. Okay, sorry, I got to do the Peach story. All right. Well, I'm going to stop talking about gear now. We're just going to tell a story, and then I'm hungry, and then I've got work to do. So I'm going to figure out what's going on here. Okay, so I was kind of struggling for work. I'm touching my face, so everybody take a sip. And that's the worst touching too, is touching your eye. That's where everybody, you can't wear an eye mask and a face, so. But I was just trying to get any work I could do, and there was this Christian artist. He was a worship leader, and he would get these pretty good paying conference gigs. And so my friend played drums with him. And another friend of mine played bass, and I don't know, maybe I met that bass player on this gig. We've become friends since. But my friend, the drummer, I had worked on all his wife's records, so he recommended me. But it was the rehearsals were down in Irvine, and Pasadena to Irvine during the week, it would take me an hour and a half to get down there. Now, it would only take me like 35 minutes to get home at like 11 o'clock at night. But to go for a 7 o'clock rehearsal at a church down at, midweek, it'd take me an hour and a half to get down there. And I think maybe, in fact, I remember his wife called me, and she asked if I'd be willing to do it. And the other two guys both lived down there. So it was like, I would be the only one driving from a distance. And I just said, well, what does it pay? And she was kind of upset that I would ask what rehearsals pay. And I'm like, why is that a weird... I guess because they'd only had people willing to work for free. And they were like, well, Tom's just all about the money. And I'm like, you don't understand. Driving at the time, and I think it was our Volvo wagon, down there. So, it's not exactly, a Tesla gas consumption wise. So, and this was early it was mid 90s. And so I drove down there, and we did some rehearsals, did a gig. The gig paid like $500 for the weekend, so it was great. And plus, it came with hotel and food and everything. So that was like, okay, this is a good gig. Well, then he decides, I don't want to do worship anymore. I want to do my original music. I'm like, I'd had 3 original bands. I'd played in other people's original bands, and you never make money playing in original bands, especially in Los Angeles. See ya, Pepper. Especially in Los Angeles. In fact, if anything, you have to pay to play. We would have to buy tickets and try to sell them, and they're like, well, just sell them for more than you paid for them, and you're like lucky to get any of your money back. Usually it costs you money to play a gig. And so my whole reason for doing the thing was, and I have 5 reasons. I got a video there in my it's called if you want to be a musician full time, definitely watch watch all the videos in my playlist. I'd love to do 70 videos there, but they're just not very popular, so I haven't done many in a while. But I have a playlist called The Business of Making Music, and there's about 20 videos in there, maybe 18 videos in there now. And this is one of them. I talk about the 5 reasons to get a gig: for the money, for connections, for experience, for friends, and for God. And it only has to be one of those things, but a lot of times you do, it's money and connections. It's money, it's a church gig that pays, or it's a friend's gig that pays, or, it can be multiple things. But if it doesn't have one of those elements, I probably will say no. And by experience, it may be one of those things where I have a friend, or let's say a friend of a friend, I don't even know this person. They say, hey, would you play banjo in our bluegrass band for this Sawdust Festival? Oh, sure, I'll do that, because I want to work on my banjo chops. So that's the experience. Sometimes the experience is more just like, I've got a thing I want to work on. I played for a year and a half. I played every day, Monday through Friday, at lunch. I played at a restaurant in Pasadena playing classical guitar, and they didn't pay me anything. They gave me a lunch, and I would get tips, but it was right by the courthouse. It was only attorneys, so I would literally average about $1 in tips every day, because attorneys are super cheap. And so I'm sitting there playing, but I did it because I wanted to practice playing classical music in front of people to help deal with my nerves, so I wouldn't be so nervous when I perform. So it served that purpose. So I had a purpose for it. Well, this gig, if we're going to be doing shows, it's one thing to be doing shows, and working for an artist, if you really, really believe in the music. If it's an original situation and you really think the music is really good and you love the music. It really wasn't the case with this artist. And so I was like, he wasn't a particularly good songwriter. He was a good singer, a very good singer, and not a bad guitar player. And a great guy, greatest guy. We had a blast. We had a lot of fun in rehearsals, and even on the one gig we did. So when we do this gig, I think we played somewhere in Hollywood, maybe at the Roxy or something. It wasn't the Roxy. It wasn't any place that nice. And I remember, I think I had to pay $25 to park, and I, had to bring all this gear, and I had to set up, and I'd had stuff stolen in Hollywood before. Hollywood's the worst place to hang out. You'll get mugged in Hollywood, literally. And so I hated being in Hollywood. So we did this, and then, we want to rehearse next week. Okay, so I drive down, and we go through, and me and the bass player and the drummer really had a challenge, because every week this artist would show up, Pete. So Pete would show up with a new song, and gosh, it sounded like the previous 5 songs. It's like, it's the same groove. Again, one of those classic example where he'd be playing acoustic guitar, you do the same groove on it. So the drummer, the poor drummer, he's got to try to okay, what kind of groove can I do that's different than the other one? And the bass player's trying to come up with something, and I'm trying to come up with parts that make it not sound like all the other songs. And so we play the song, and we're going late. We've done a lot of rehearsing, and we're playing this song. We're working, and me and the drummer and the bass player are working our butts off trying to get this song to sound like its own thing, not like the the bridge of a previous song. And we're just sweating here. We're like, oh, we spent an hour just trying to get this song, and I'm just like, and I probably spent 2 hours in traffic to get there, and I'm looking at my hauling all my gear back into my car, and then driving all the way home late at night, and then hauling all my gear all the way upstairs. And afterwards, after we finished the song, Pete goes, "So guys, what do you think of the song?" And we kind of looked at each other, and the drummer, God bless him, he said, Pete, it kind of sounds like all your other songs. And Pete goes, "Oh no, it doesn't sound. It's a totally unique song. It totally doesn't sound anything like the other songs." Well, not only was the melody the same, the strumming was the same, the chord progression was basically the same. The lyrics weren't were the same subject. It was like, but it just like the drummer just kind of cracked the door open, right? And when he said, no, it doesn't sound anything like the previous songs, I said, "Oh man, it sounds exactly like your previous songs. In fact, all your songs sound alike." And I just kind of unloaded on him, and I felt bad afterwards. But we didn't do any more rehearsals. That was kind of the end of it. He ended up actually getting a job in the business, being a head of an A&R of a company, and he actually got me work in that company. I did a lot of work for them, so you could probably figure out who it is, but it's if you did some research, but it's not worth figuring out. But it was one of those times where I felt bad because. But I was just like, I'd hit my ceiling, and I kept my mouth shut until someone finally said something. I guess the drummer just kind of cracked that door open, and I just burst through it like Kramer. That was just so. That's my Pete story, Diane. I had to say Pete because that was how I'd remember who it was. Let's see. Vito, what are you asking about? How about a 200 horsepower EQ? I don't know what that 200 horsepower. Yeah, the truth definitely hurts. And like I said, we stayed friends. But I think his wife was mad at me longer than he was. But in some ways, I think she was probably relieved that he wasn't going to Hollywood to do, crappy gigs that he had to pay for. In fact, I have a vague recollection that he was like, "Yeah, guys, so we're going to have to kick in some money to do this gig." And I'm like, "Wait, you're not paying me for rehearsals anymore. I'm driving 2 hours one way to go to a rehearsal, and then you want me to pay to play? No, I'm not doing that." So it died. There are so many people that come to LA that they want to be the next singer-songwriter. I mean, I've done a lot of gigs with them, and I've been them. So I know the drill. It's just kind of, I don't know. I don't want to say it's not the way you get discovered or the way you get success, because there is no one way. I think if you took, whoever here is watching, I don't know how many, do we have anybody watching still? Oh, I can't believe we still have 36 people. What's the peak been? So we're, 40, 42, so we're kind of at the peak, but it's trailing off now. But if you're really interested in doing, be it a songwriter or whatever, I would challenge you to find out as much as you can about your 5 or 10 favorite songwriters. If you want to be a composer, do the same thing. If they're old enough, like say for example, you really really liked Burt Bacharach. I love Burt Bacharach's writing. I love Elvis Costello. In fact, when they did a record together, I was stoked, and it actually was really good. I really like Steve Earle is a great songwriter. John Hyatt is a great songwriter. One of the few songwriters that actually Bob Dylan covered. I really like, let's see, who else? You may not know who Jimmy Webb is, but was a very good songwriter that had a lot of success at a very young age. My favorite song of his is not one that anyone really knows, but it's the only Amy Grant song that I like, but it's called "If These Walls Could Speak." And it's a beautiful song in 5/4, and if you can play it on piano, it's just a gorgeous song. but they, um, um, but you can, if you were to study, and I think that's even less the case now, but if you were to study your 5 favorite or 10 favorite songwriters, and say they had biographies written on all 10 of them, you read those biographies, I guarantee you none of them had even a marginally close path to success. All their paths were very, very different. There might be a couple of them that, again, I'm touching my eye, so we're going to take another sip. There might be a few of them that started working at the Brill Building, because so many great songwriters started at the Brill Building. But how did they get to that point? See, that's the different paths. You can go, oh, if I could just go get to job at the Brill Building, then in New York, then I'll be a famous songwriter. But there were a million songwriters you've never heard of that went to the Brill Building and nothing happened. So just because you're in the right place at the right time doesn't mean you're going to have success. Yeah, Jimmy Webb's great. Jimmy Webb. It's 2 B's too, by the way, Leo. I mean, I think Jimmy Webb had 5 or 6 #1 hits when he was 19 years old. One of my favorite songs, one of my wife's favorite songs too, is Galveston. What a great song that is by Glenn Campbell. And the arrangements just so cool back in the 60s, really, really cool. I love Burt Bacharach. He's got so many great, Hal David and Burt Bacharach have so many great songs. Sorry, my eye itches. See you later, Vito. Yeah, Dennis, one of the things you do is you just find out if there's a songwriter that, and sometimes it could be Lennon McCartney, that's your favorite. And again, their path was completely different than Burt Bacharach's path. Jimmy Webb's path was very different than, Elvis Costello's path. John Hyatt, it's funny because John Hyatt's from Indianapolis and he went to Broad Ripple High School. Who was in his graduating class was Jane Pauley, if you know who that is, and David Letterman. All 3 of them graduated the same year from the same high school. There was something in the water that year. So anyway, I'm going to take off. I got to get back to work. I've been on here for 2 hours, guys. So on Wednesday, we're going to continue this. We're going to talk. I got about 3 more chords I can show you. I'll see if there might be a couple more. I'm trying to think. I think pretty much just 3 more chords we can talk about in this context. But we haven't really even, by adding all these chords, and we can add them all up and look at them and go, oh, okay, cool. Now you've got a really big palette of chords to cull from for songwriting. If you're gonna, speaking of songwriting, okay, which I always encourage. I'm big on creating content. I do it every day. And it kind of keeps that pipeline full. So, all right. God bless you guys. I will talk to you soon, and we will continue this chord progression theory stuff. Okay?